Alright, welcome back to the show. Today we are talking about the NBA versus the NFL. Which one is more popular locally and worldwide? Well, Christmas fell on a Sunday this year, meaning the NFL shared the holiday with the NBA. The NBA typically gets Christmas, the NFL gets Thanksgiving. And it was very evident what America's new favorite pastime is, because it ain't baseball. The most watched NBA game was the Celtics versus the Bucks. That had 6 million viewers. The least watched NFL game was the Buccaneers versus the Cardinals. That had 18 million viewers. Now, granted, the NFL has 17 games in a season versus the NBA, which has 82, so one NFL game is far more significant than one NBA game. But nevertheless, 26 million people watched the Packers and Dolphins on Christmas. So no matter how you look at it, the NBA lost Christmas Day. They also lost 2022. 19 of the 20 most watched broadcasts this year were NFL games, and the only one that wasn't was Biden's State of the Union address, and that was broadcast on multiple different networks. Americans love football. Another fact that actually concerned me as an NBA content creator is the fact that no NBA game actually cracked the top 100 sports broadcast this year. That means there were regional NFL games that actually had more viewers than the NBA Finals. If you're an NBA fan, which you probably are if you watch this channel, there is good news ahead, I promise. I'm not just here to shit on your favorite league and tell you no one watches it, because I watch it too. Also, basketball is still the definitive #2 sport, so it's pretty close. It's also very competitive when it comes to revenue generating with the NFL. We'll get into that later though. Also, a very redeeming aspect of basketball that's often overlooked is it's still America's favorite sport to play. There was a USA Today study that showed that 26% of Americans 18 to 65 enjoy playing a game of basketball. I assume that means shooting hoops too, because ain't no 65-year-old out there running full court. If they say they are lying. Now let's compare a couple different factors in which sport is bigger or more popular. The average NFL franchise is worth $4.4 billion, while the average NBA franchise is worth $2.8 billion. What that means is if the owner or owners sold their team, that's how much it would sell for total. For instance, this year, Robert Sarver sold the Suns for $4 billion. This number tells us how much revenue a sports franchise is capable of generating. So how much did the NFL entirely make last year? They made $18 billion, while the NBA made $10 billion. Not that far off. I wanted to see if the NBA made more on ticket receipts, given that there are more games than the NFL, but they did not. The NFL makes $2.7 billion, while the NBA makes $1.2 billion on ticket receipts. Whether it's tickets, merchandise, or TV deals, the NFL is always making more money. Sorry guys. So what is my case for the NBA actually being more popular than the NFL? The NBA is incredibly popular worldwide. The United States isn't even where the NBA is most popular. It's most popular in the Philippines. 63% of Filipinos say they are at least somewhat interested in the NBA. The Filipino League is free to watch on public TV, and basketball courts are ubiquitous across the country. Obviously, China is very interested in basketball. The NBA's second biggest TV deal is with Tencent, China's biggest broadcasting company. I'm incredulous about this number, but I found multiple sources that say China has 800 million basketball viewers. I'm assuming this means watch at least one game a season. For reference, if that's even close to true, that means that China actually has more basketball viewers than America does people. So if you look at which is more popular by the amount of people that watch it, the NBA takes the cake, just because China has so many viewers. Also, the only real American football league that operates outside the US is the CFL, the Canadian Football League. And that only generates around $20 million a year. That's 1% of what the NFL generates. Not that it's all about money, but I think that's a pretty good gauge for popularity. The only other football leagues I could find were in Finland and Austria, and they're not even popular enough to have their own website. I think football suffers from being too close to rugby, which has far more cultural relevance across the globe. A rising tide floats all boats. That's why the EuroLeague, the CBA, and the NBL are actually increasing popularity of the NBA all over the world. Basketball is so popular across the world that other leagues actually compete for talent with the NBA. Tony Kukoc stayed in Europe an extra 3 years after he was drafted because he could make more money in the Italian league. Lance Stevenson signed for $4 million in 2019 to the Flying Leopards in the CBA. That's far more money than he was making with the Lakers the previous season. Jeremy Lin the same year signed with the Beijing Ducks for $3 million, and he's made $20 million in China so far. Granted, both Jeremy and Lance probably want to be in the NBA. They'd probably rather take a vet minimum for less money to play at the highest level. But my point is, basketball is a global economy, and the NBA is not the only game in town. The NBA doesn't only export talent, it imports talent. There are loads of players from other countries. I used to watch a lot of soccer, and European teams would poach talent from the MLS. Because the leagues were more popular, they could pay more money, and the competition ESPN was better. Landon Donovan played in Germany, Clint Dempsey played in England, and Josie Altidore played in Spain. I'm sorry, my references are dated. I haven't watched soccer in a really long time. Nikola Jokic played for Megabasket, Giannis played for Philiakos, I don't know if I'm saying that right, and of course Luka Doncic played for Real Madrid. My favorite English Premier team was Fulham because they had loads of Americans. And this effect happens the other way in the NBA. Even 10 years after Yao Ming has retired, and 3 years after Daryl Morey had criticism about their government, China's favorite team is still the Houston Rockets. Fans in other countries get attached to players that play in their country even when they're not from there. Emmanuel Mudiay is a Congolese American basketball player who played his first year as a professional in China. He was the first player to do that, and Chinese people got very attached to him. He signed with the Southern Tigers for $1.2 million, and he played against Stephon Marbury, another American, in the CBA playoffs. Mudiay was drafted to the NBA in 2015 as the 7th pick, but his coach of the Southern Tigers liked him so much, he said if he ever wanted to come back to the CBA, they'd be the first team to sign him. Which could be sooner rather than later, because right now Mudiay is playing with the Iowa Wolves in the G League. Or the tie between LaMelo Ball and Australia. LaMelo did the same thing that Mudiay did, but he did it in Australia with the Illawarra Hawks. Basketball news, basketball culture is worldwide. The NFL's is not. Football is not an Olympic sport. American football does not have a World Cup. The NFL has gained a decent amount of traction in Europe over the past couple years. They play 2 or 3 regulation games in Germany and England. But there is not a lot of talent coming from outside the US into the NFL like there is in the NBA. 26% of the players in the NBA comes from other countries. Only 5% of the NFL comes from other countries, and most of them are from Canada. So in the US, it's not even close. The NFL is way more popular by orders of magnitude. But I believe the NFL has a lower ceiling for popularity. Personally, I don't think the NFL could be any more popular than it already is. Most of ESPN's coverage is of the NFL, even when it's not in season. I'm happy about this though. I'm glad we have a sport that is uniquely American, but we have other sports that we share with the rest of the world. We have our own cultural identity, but we also have a way to connect with people across the globe. I know that sounds corny, I know that sounds stupid, but that's what I think, that's how I feel truly. Yeah, so I guess the NBA is more popular, but the NFL makes more money if that matters to you. Thank you for being here. Eat a corn dog, love your mother.